Welcome back to the Leafscast. Stephen Douglas joined by Tim and Ryan Allison for what I think is the first playoff or off-season podcast we've done since the playoffs.
This is the first test to see if I'm over it. We learned after last podcast that we're Sheldon Keefe Aspires that an hour of talking about the Leafs was too close to when we were out. So hopefully it's had a little more time to settle now that, the Stanley Cup has been awarded. We still can't be happy because the Canadian team didn't get to it. It didn't. The drought lives on.
You know what's funny? I went most of the playoffs pretty indifferent to it all. Like, I didn't really care. After Leafs get eliminated, I'm usually pretty angry about the whole thing. But right until the final end, I was just like, yeah, I hate like 5 players on Florida. I can't stand Corey Perry or Evander Kane on Edmonton. Like, I don't want either of these teams to win. But then Edmonton started making their comeback, and Connor McDavid is just the greatest player ever. Yeah. And like, it finally got to me in like game 6 or like game 7. I was just like, man, like, I hope Edmonton wins, and they lose. It's like, I can never win.
Can't be happy as a rule.
No.
They were total dead man walking, and like, I watched game 2 and 3, did not watch game 1, and then I don't think I watched game 4, and then after that I was like completely hooked in again. And I was watching game 7, and I felt so dumb because like I'm watching and I care because I'm like, now I kind of want to see the Oilers win or whatever, and I'm like, wait, I don't care. I don't want to be disappointed again once Florida went up, right? I was like, I don't want to be disappointed. Why am I doing this to myself? But 31 years, no Canadian team winning. That's insane. Ridiculous.
The most hilarious stat is that it's been longer since a Canadian team has won the Stanley Cup than an American team has won the CFL Grey Cup. in 1995, there was an American CFL team that won the Grey Cup.
What? Where? Why?
Baltimore.
Baltimore had a...
That is a pretty funny stat.
In the 90s had... Okay.
Anyways, we're a hockey
not even
podcast
that close.
Here.
That's not even that close to Canada either. That's like, it's not like a border country or anything. Oh well.
At the end of the day, this is a copycat league. Every year that a team wins, or sometimes it's even as much as the running up team, and teams will look at them and say, "Okay, what did they do to get them over the hump?" So, what are your guys' takeaway from Florida and to a lesser extent Edmonton to things that we should look at them and say, like, man, they won and they're better than us because they got that, and that's why they got there.
I mean, I think part of me that was rooting for Edmonton was just like Edmonton's team construction is similar to ours to some degree. And so looking at like, oh, can Edmonton do this would be a proving that like, okay, maybe there is hope for the Leafs. And, didn't happen. Stars ran out, power play couldn't score, goaltending had let one too many goals. And it's like, oh, I guess we're just destined to lose.
Well, you look at... Go ahead, Tim.
I was going to say, and then like you compare it to Florida, it's like, oh, what does Florida have that we don't? A $10 million goaltender, players that play dirty all the time, and Patrice Bergeron reincarnate.
Well, and a lot of really elite defensive defensemen. I mean, Barkov was shut down absolutely everybody on his path to Connor McDavid, and then, really... it felt like when it mattered most, handled a lot of the situations against McDavid in that final series. They are built so differently than the Leafs, but like their center depth's better than ours, and they're there for, like, they were there for a reason. They're already the favorite to win it again next year. Obviously, they got a lot of guys that they're like, missing out on. What was interesting though is like going into that game 7, where I'm trying to think of the last time we had like that big of a game 7 in hockey, probably like never since we've been alive or something. But anyway,
2019 was game 7 in the Cup.
But what was crazy is that both teams really like raised to the moment. Like that was a really well played game by both teams, where it felt like everybody was like going super hard all the time. And I was watching it like, if the Leafs were in this situation, would they just piss it away?
Well, no, I was thinking the same thing though.
Yeah,
like, I was looking at game 7, the end of the game, Florida gets a goal and gets up, and they have the chance to just like lock it down and win. And, like, I don't even think Edmonton got, like, one more shot on net for the rest of the game after. It was just, like, a defensive clinic that Florida put on. And Edmonton crumbled and died after that, especially in the last minute after they had their goalie pulled. Just literally nothing. And I remember in our Game 7, we got ahead. We were beating Boston in the third period in Game 7, and it lasted for, like, 90 seconds. And Boston was all over us, and they just scored, and we couldn't recover, and then we lost in overtime. You just think, like, if we had what Florida has, we could just, like, get the lead and then just lock it down, but we didn't. We couldn't do it. The other thing I was thinking of, you know what it was 7 weeks ago. That's how long it was that the Leafs played last, and it still hasn't healed.
Well, the Cup final doesn't usually go till nearly July. I mean,
it's a late one.
Like, this is crazy.
The other thing I was thinking was I was thinking of what Florida did at the deadline. Do you remember what the big moves that Florida brought in at the deadline to put them over the top?
Tarasenko.
I think that's it.
Okapozo, I think. They were like fourth liner.
Was he a trade deadline one? Either way, a fourth liner at best. And Tarasenko. And that's it. So they didn't make like some big splashes at the trade deadline to put them over the top. They had a really good free agency. They brought out a bunch of guys at that point, and they already had a team before then. But it made me realize, like, you know what? You know who had a bad free agency? We did. We had a bad free agency. We brought in Klingberg and Reeves, and for half the season, Adomi and Bertuzzi, who sucked. Like, our free agency sucked last year, and it really put us back for a lot of the year. It was hard to recover. So it's a good time to do a pod to talk about what not to do, or rather what we should do for this year.
Because free agency is less than a week away.
We've done a lot of these, and like every single Leafs free agency is so intriguing. There's never one, like the Dubas era of free agency was like all these random little darts getting tossed, and
who has played for the Sioux?
Yeah, guys you've never heard of before, right? That like he'll be your top line center this year, you know, and Treliving had a bad one last year, like way worse than any Dubas era free agency that we can think of. And so we'll get into...
Are you casting shade on Simone Benoit?
No, I'm casting shade on all the guys that Ryan said like a couple minutes ago. Well, wait, okay, here's the question. Would you rather have what we had last year or David Clarkson signing a like 6-year, $7 million contract again?
Yikes.
And then getting suspended.
Yes, there's no shortage of the dark times when it comes to Maple Leafs fans. You don't need to bring that up here, Steven.
Well, so let's set the stage before getting into the free agency talk with the Marner roundtable. Now that Sheldon Keefe has been relieved of his job and we have a new coach in the building, the number one most Googled and talked about name surrounding the Maple Leafs has been Mitch Marner and what's going to happen there, because it feels like, and everything you're hearing is that the Leafs are looking at moving him. What do you guys think?
I mean, the first thing that I have to say is that I'm glad that we've taken a bit of a break here from podcasting, because every single week this flip-flops. He's not going. He is going. He's not going. He's going to go. Who's he going to bring back in a trade? Like, it's just all over the board. Everyone has an opinion about it, and now that it's only a week away from free agency, we get to come and have the final say. So I'm glad we didn't waste our time on all those opinions before now in the previous few weeks that we could have been podcasting.
I mean, there was a big enough section of our last podcast where we talked about Mitch Marner and whether it made sense to like shop him or not, or like, who knows if he actually being shopped or not. Like, it seems like the most recent news is that like, oh, he's gonna ride it out to the next summer and like not waive his no move clause, and just who knows, right? Because it's like,
I think it's for sure that the Leafs are looking around though. Like, that's not a hidden secret. And like, whether Marner moves it, like, of course his camp is going to come out and say, yeah, of course we're not waiving a no trade clause. Like, that, the fact that they're saying that means zero. Like, that could be true, it could not be true. They're going to say it either way. But what's for sure true is that the Leafs are looking to see and listening and talking to other teams to see if there's something out there that makes sense, both for a team who wants Marner, a team who has something that can give back for Marner, and a team that Marner would be willing to waive his no trade clause, which is a lot of ifs, and they might not work out. But that's where it's at right now.
Well, it's interesting. Like, the timing of it as well, because you think of like a player like Mitch Marner, he's the number one, draft day like name, right, that could be traded. Like he's the best of the best that would be available. But that's not to say that there aren't other good players that are supposed to be available this year in free agency. And it's like when you're talking about Mitch, you have to trade for him if you want him. So it's like, oh, okay, well, so I can, sign this guy and pay him $1 gajillion, or I can trade for Mitch Marner. I have to trade a bunch to get him and sign him for $1 gajillion anyway, right? So some of it feels like if a deal's happening, like why would it happen? It would happen like after free agency has kind of settled a little bit. Am I crazy?
No, but the problem with that, like whenever you have these players that make a crazy amount of money, it never happens after free agency. It never happens even after. It could happen after the draft. Just never after free agency, because by the time free agency, it's like even after day one, teams are mostly settled and they kind of have their rosters, and no one's like waiting and keeping $10 million of cap space just in case a player like Marner comes up, because then they're going to miss out on all the other players. So every team has already jumped and made their decisions. If you're waiting until day 5, 6, or 7 after the free agency starts, it's too late. There's going to be no players left at the table for you to deal with.
I mean, the one other name that is interesting that maybe is not out there as much as Marner just because of the Leaf effect, but Leon Draisaitl going into the last year of his deal, similar scenario where it's like Edmonton cannot let that guy walk for nothing. But
you have to think with Edmonton getting so close though, like there's no way that Draisaitl's going to be like, nah, I'm going to leave. Like he's going to want another kick at the can. I don't think so.
But it's funny. Like I said, Florida's going into the season as the new favorite for the Cup. Like I can't imagine that Edmonton's odds are really that much better this season than they were last season, right? Like it's kind of wild that they even made it there anyway, considering a lot of the holes that they had and stuff. I could 100% see the Leon Draisaitl situation getting a little funky.
But why? Like
a lot of those European guys don't want to live in Edmonton.
Well, who does? Like it's cold there.
No, but I'm saying the European guy, like Vladimir Tarasenko. I know Russian and German, like very different, but I'm just saying, like he wanted to go to Florida, right at the deadline. That was him saying, like, I want to go to Florida. Panarin wanted to go to a big city, and he went to New York. Like I would not be surprised if Leon Draisaitl doesn't want to stay in Edmonton because they have, even though they made it to the Cup final this year, they haven't had a ton of success.
I don't know. We've spent too much time as it is talking about Austin Matthews and would he leave and go to, Los Angeles or Arizona when they actually had a hockey team or something. And you just think like, man, if the Leafs keep losing and they can't win anything, then like he might walk. He might say like, you know what, give me to a team who's actually going to do something here. Edmonton just made it as close as you could possibly get without winning. Like there is no bar higher than that short of winning the Stanley Cup. So, like, if you're chasing success, there's no way he's going to go anywhere other than Edmonton. And there's no way Edmonton's not going to pay through the nose to keep him. So he's going to stay in Edmonton. He's going to get all the money. He's the hero along with Connor McDavid. He's got a real shot at the Cup. Like, there's no way he's leaving.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, I guess, like, if the Edmonton wants to pay him and keep around, they can do that.
Of course they do. Why would they not want to pay him and keep him around?
Ryan, he only gets paid $8.5 million. They have to make room for like what, $5 million, $6 million raise?
Yeah, he will probably be the highest paid player in the league.
That's one goalie in the press box.
Well, you
Edmonton
wonder.
has enough of them.
You wonder though if part of his decision is what he thinks Connor McDavid's plan is as well. I mean, we will see. Edmonton has not been the ideal free agent destination for a long time before Connor McDavid got there. A lot of the guys that are there because Connor McDavid's there. Be interesting.
Did you bring him up, Tim, because you think the Leafs should make a push for him?
No, that would be interesting though. Just swap the final year of their deals. No, I just wanted, like, you were talking about the free agent market for like Mitch Marner. As far as he like the guy to get like most talent on the market, it's like, well, Leon Draisaitl is also out there. Probably is more valuable than Mitch Marner.
Well, yeah, but Mitch Marner's the only one up there who's going to be possibly traded. There's no way Leon Draisaitl's being traded.
But if Leon Draisaitl tells Edmonton brass that, like, no, I'm not signing an extension, what do you like? You try and trade him? I think Draisaitl doesn't have a full no move clause, but anyways, it's a bit of we should probably get back to talking about the Leafs, but I think where it's relevant though is like Marner has all the power here. Like Dubas, by giving him the no move clause right to the end, it says like you can walk for nothing, and there's nothing we can do about it, unless if you want to throw us a bone and really want to get out of here. But,
well, there's things the Leafs could do to make Marner's life kind of suck this year. Doesn't seem like he's somebody who's completely shielded from like the media affecting him, and I can't even imagine what his life's going to be like if he goes through the season.
I don't think the Leafs are going to do anything intentionally to try and make Marner's life suck, so he's willing to waive his I don't think the Leafs will do that. However, I do think that as soon as the season starts, it's going to be a gong show with the media, and everyone's going to be all over Mitch Marner. And if he has anything short of a spectacular start, it's going to be a disaster for him, and it's just going to be spiraling down because he can't handle that kind of pressure. He's going to get to the playoffs, and he's only going to be thinking about his contract and like, is this my last games as the Leafs? And he's going to be horrible in the playoffs. And like, it's so predictable how it's all going to shake out, and the only way to avoid it is just give him a massive contract extension and hope he plays great. And that's a sucky solution, but I think it's the only one.
Well, some of this Mitch Marner stuff is frustrating because, like, just because we're talking about him doesn't mean that I 100% agree that, like, he's the only reason the Leafs haven't won in the playoffs and, like, trading him is going to solve all of our problems. Because, like, I think most people listening to this podcast could squint and see that, like, if the Leafs kept Mitch Marner at a similar cap and didn't have John Tavares on the books, the Leafs could look a lot more different and win a lot more games still with Mitch Marner on the books.
It's a different comparison, though, because a year from now, John Tavares could be on the books making $4 million, and Mitch Marner's could be on the books making $12 million. Right?
But Mitch Marner could have 90 points. And
No,
he
that's
probably
right.
will have 90 points next year. He might have 100 points next year. Like, he's number one on that list for a reason.
I'm just saying it's the wrong comparison. Like, you look at what Connor McDavid did with the Edmonton Oilers, and he brought their team to a goal within the Stanley Cup at $12 million or $12.5 a season. And for $2 million less than that, we had Mitch Marner who got 3 points in 7 games. Like, that's the difference. That, like, you're paying that much for a superstar player that's not delivering. So, like, you say, like, I don't know, like, it's not like he's the sole reason we haven't won in the playoffs. You're right, it's not the sole reason. It's a pretty big one, though. That's a massive amount of cap that's just going nowhere.
I think what's interesting, and though I know you don't have like a lot of do-overs, but like it's a big thing bringing in a new coach, new coaching staff, new power play coach.
Yeah.
Sorry, Guy Boucher, you're done. It's season too long. But like, so like it'll be interesting to see how Marner performs with like a new voice in the room. Like Berube's there. Like, I don't know as much about Berube. Like is he a player's coach? Is he? I don't think he's known more for the defensive grinding guys than the high scoring finesse guys. So maybe it is just going to be a disaster. But like it'll be interesting to see what happens with Marner. Like I don't know what Marner's starting point is at salary and what he's looking for. Like, does what happens this season even impact it? It probably should, but is he just going with pay me like Matthews?
But I wonder that, like, if you're Mitch and you're like you really want to stay, the Leafs are pushing you to say that we really don't want you to stay. We want to go in a different direction. You have the power. Like, what if he's saying, like, I'm going to go out there really motivated this year and be the best player on the Maple Leafs.
That's what Nylander did.
Yeah, and turn it around, and you guys are going to have to pay me, and like we can make this work, right? That's a way that he can make this situation work as well if he ends up sticking around. And the trade stuff's interesting because, like, another guy whose name is out there for trades is Martin Necas, right? Mm-hmm. And he's not a Mitch Marner, but he's good. He's very good, right? And you're hearing his name everywhere. Like, this team would be interested in doing this, and there's discussions of trading this for Martin Necas. You haven't heard one actual team that's interested in Mitch Marner yet. So it makes me wonder how much his name actually is out there. Seems like things are really
if I had to
down.
bet on media blowing smoke, I would always put my money on the media blowing smoke.
Yeah, it is tough to say what the actual market is out there. It's hard to believe that there are 31 other teams out there who would pick up the phone when someone's saying, hey, we want to give you Mitch Marner. He's a every year 95-point scorer who can play both ends of the ice and, leadership material. Apparently, I don't know. He wears an A on his jersey every other night. But there's got to be an interest out there. It's just what the ask is, right? There'd be a whole bunch of teams that'd be interested, but if the ask is too high and they can't afford the cap and the Leafs aren't willing to retain, then the amount of available buyers just goes down and down.
Yeah, and I don't think the Leafs are retaining. We're going to be running out of salary cap after we overpay for all the old defensemen that are UFAs this summer. But
let's talk about that, though. So, hypothetically, right, if Mitch Marner sticks around with the Leafs next year, we still have lots of money coming off the books, free agency's coming up. And again, all of this could get funky because the draft is on Friday, and Leafs could trade their first round pick for a guy, right? I mean, they almost traded it for Markstrom last week, from what you're hearing, right?
What's funny is apparently the Leafs had a better offer, and apparently Calgary just is still salty about Treliving leaving, and I don't know, is that just the media blowing? But I've seen it in multiple places about people talking about it. It's really?
Are you concerned that we almost traded our first-round pick and a good defenseman prospect for a 34-year-old goalie with a high cap hit?
I'm so glad that deal fell through because, yes, I wouldn't say I'm the most interested in Markstrom, especially when you're trading away our very few tradable assets. Again, we have many other needs, but why were we doing that when apparently the talks are out there, and maybe by the time people are listening to this, it'll be confirmed or denied. But we're talking about giving Joseph Wall a 3-year by $3.5 or $4 million contract. What are we doing in net here? What's the plan?
I didn't think about that.
We don't plan.
Did that timing of the Joe Woll rumored contract come out after the Markstrom deal was confirmed to have happened?
But either way, whether we got Markstrom or not, it was either Wall is going to be our number one with a Brossoit or someone as his backup, or Markstrom was our number one and Wall is our backup. We're giving Wall a contract anyway. So this deal was probably in fruition either way, except it seems like a ridiculous amount of money and a ridiculous amount of term for a goalie who's played 30 games in the NHL. He's an RFA. He's not even a UFA. Brad, stop doing your players' laundry. It's embarrassing.
Well, he's about to sign a bunch of free agents too. Brad could get crazy. So let's talk about Domi and Bertuzzi. I know last time we potted, we discussed bringing these guys back, and there's still a few more days, but it's really not sounding like either of them are going to be back with the Leafs next year.
They're at least going to test the market, I think, is the consensus at this point. Generally, when that happens, the Leafs don't have the best bid. But they bank on the other intangibles.
Couldn't you see it happening? I don't know. I more imagine it with Domi than Bertuzzi. I don't know why, but that's just where my brain goes. But can't you see that? Because clearly they want term. They both came off of 1-year contracts. Domi's been on 1-year contracts for 7 years running here, and they go to free agency and they say listen, I'm looking for a 5 by something, and everyone just says nope. We'll give you a 1-year $3 million contract, and then he says fine. If I'm going to do that, then I might as well just go back to Toronto. You know what I mean? I can kind of see that happening where. They just don't get what they hope that they're going to get. Now, you are right, Tim. Usually players come to play for the Leafs, and then they go to Vancouver and get a whole bunch of money or something. So we'll see how it actually works out. But I could see them, day 2 or day 3 of free agency, turning their tails and saying, all right, Tree, we'll do it.
But, for example, if you're Domi, maybe it doesn't work out because the Leafs are still presuming that you won't come back, and so they might sign somebody else to do your job. Right? So even if you come back in 3 days, your spot's gone. What
happened with Brad last year is there was kind of the initial flurry of free agents, and we got none of them. And then Brad kind of came in and picked up some of the scraps.
Tim, we got Ryan Reeves so fast. We signed him so fast.
We did sign it so fast. He saw 3 years in the top and said, quick before he fixes the typo.
I actually remember a lot of last year's free agency typo. I remember a lot of last year's free agency. I feel trickling, going kind of slow. Maybe there wasn't as many big names this year. There are some.
There's not necessarily the huge names, unless it's a lot of good names, a lot of number 4 forwards or number 4 defensemen or
Still,
something like that.
there's definitely like a tier of players that are priced out of
Yeah.
where we're at. Like I think the consensus at this point is that the Leafs have a large portion of their salary cap dollars allocated to the defense. I don't know how like you score 4 goals in 7 games and say like defense is the biggest need of the team, but
Okay, but hold on.
defense
Like,
is the need of the team.
you could argue that we had like 5 poor puck moving defensemen, and that goes a long way as to why we couldn't score goals, though, right? Like, you even look at the
Yeah.
power play and just say like we have an upgrade from Mo
Yeah.
and get someone back there who could actually rip it. Like you look at Bouchard on Edmonton, and like they had a lot more success than we had. So
I don't know. I could see Brad just sorting height, tallest to shortest, and that's his target list.
we have the lowest opinion of Brad Treliving.
Well, last year was, I mean, the only reason it wasn't completely awful is because Bertuzzi and Domi kind of figured it out as the season went on, right?
It only took them 50 games.
But otherwise, like, you can't give him that many flowers for Benoit. And, you know, if it weren't for LTIR, we'd be in big trouble.
I'm just waiting for Matt Murray to be re-signed as our starter.
I'm so dumb. Did Brad trade for Matt Murray?
No, that was Dubas.
That was stupid.
Brad kept Matt Murray and he gave him a stall in the dressing room last season.
Oh, okay. Man, it all just like blends together.
We
didn't even talk about like Samsonov. I guess Samsonov's going to test free agency as well, and
Yep.
so interesting.
It'll
So
be
we-
interesting to see what we end up doing on defense. We don't have Brody coming back. We obviously don't have what's his name? The guy who was just injured all of last year. Klingberg. We don't have Klingberg coming
Lyubushkin
back.
is likely gone.
Edmondson probably gone. So like we're going to be having McCabe and Riley and probably Liljegren. He might go to arbitration. We'll see.
Well, we gave Benoit 3-year deals.
Benoit, yeah. I wonder if that McCabe Benoit pairing will stick as our second pair. And I'm listening to other podcasts. I'm cheating on you guys. Sorry, reading reports, and everyone seems to be saying that we need like 2 top 4 defensemen. Otherwise, you have Benoit in your top 4. And I'm just thinking, like, what's wrong with Benoit in your top 4? Like, we're not going to have an above average decor. Like, that's just not how we're built. Unless if we do trade Mitch Marner and really allocate some assets and money to the defense here. But like, I think that Benoit McCabe pair, that's about as good of a 3-4 that we're gonna get, and I think that's okay. We just need someone better to play with Riley, so we have an actual 1-2, not like a 1-6 that works as a 1-2.
That's the story of the past 10 years.
Yeah,
Who's
no,
gonna play with Riley?
we had Brody for a while there.
That's you are right. We had a few years of Riley Brody that was like, all right, this can work.
Well, the names, like there are defensemen out there. You know, free agency gets wild because it's always like you look at the age of all these guys and you're like, oh my gosh. But like the number one name that we've been hearing about since 2012 is Chris Tanev. Is Chris Tanev going to come to the Maple Leafs? He's 34 years old.
Injury prone.
Is this? But had a really, really, really good playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, he was so important for Dallas. Is this what Brad's going to do? This feels like what Brad's going to do, right? He's going to outbid everyone
It seems
else.
like the most, like, just checks all the boxes. It feels like the most logical choice. But I tell you, I'm absolutely terrified of Chris Tanev. It actually has nothing to do with the injury problems because he's been healthy for a couple years now. The reason why I'm so terrified of Chris Tanev is Patrick Marleau and that second year and the non-existent third year, because we brought him in on a 3-year contract, and you're sure that if we bring in Tanev, it's going to be on something like a 3-year contract, probably not as rich as Marleau's contract was, but you bring him in because you're like, man, this guy's still got it. And the first year we had Marleau, it's like, man, this guy's great. He was playing with Matthews on the top line.
Yeah.
And then the second year, he was so bad. Just, like, falls off a cliff. And we had to trade Carolina a first-round pick to get out of that third year. And I could just, like, see a future where I don't even know if Tanner's going to last a year with us. And there's the injury stuff. And he's just the kind of player that Brad is going to sort by weight and sort by height and give him a ridiculous contract, and it terrifies me.
Well, the thing about Chris Tanev, he's the same age as TJ Brody. Like, you don't have to go back as far as Marleau, but, like, just look at TJ Brody. Like, it was really just this year, right? That he fell off a cliff.
Well, the end of last year, like he was bad in the playoffs 2 years ago as well.
That's a good point. And so it's like that could some of the terms they're talking about with Chris Tanev. Like Chris Tanev is great. Like he has good track record, but it's just like
it was just so tricky
scary.
because you look at these players and like there's some guys who just got it and they can play at an elite level until they're like late. Look at the loser Corey Perry. He's there like living it up in Edmonton. He makes it to the Cup final every year. Every year. And he loses every year, which is great. But like some guys just got it and they know how to play late into their career. They could change their game. They could adjust. And like clearly TJ Brody could not. And who knows what kind of contract he's going to get. But you don't know until they do it. And like I have no idea if Tanev is going to do it.
Well, there's other guys though, right? Like it doesn't like Zaitsev.
What's funny? I'm looking at the list. Yeah, Barry, Zaitsev, Klingberg are all on that UFA list.
Bring them home.
No, but like okay, so Brandon Montour, right? You talk about a bunch of defensemen that cannot move the puck. Brandon Montour, formerly or maybe still on the Cup-winning Florida Panthers. Ontario boy. Can Brandon Montour, who's like a 30-year-old elite puck-moving defenseman, had like a bazillion points last year, could he come to the Maple Leafs? Like,
well,
that's a guy
he had
I'd be more
33
comfortable.
points.
Or sorry, 2 years ago he had an insane amount of points, right? He was like it was crazy.
He's probably the biggest fish out there on D. Is that right? I can't think of a player that would be.
There's a few other names.
Guy just won the cup. That guy, he'll come with a premium. I bet he'll get paid the most out of all the UFA defensemen.
Yeah, who's the LA guy? Roy?
Matt
Oh
Roy.
yeah, I like
Is it Matt
Roy.
Waugh? Is it Waugh? We don't watch LA.
I believe it's Roy.
You've got Zadorov, right? Like Zadorov was, it felt like close to even coming to the Leafs during the season. Could be him. Like it's guys like that though that like I'd so much rather if we're gonna spend, I don't know, say $10 million and it went to Zadorov and Brandon Montour, I'd feel so much better about it than like just anything that has to do with Chris Tanev.
Yeah,
that's where I'm at. Like, if
I
we're gonna
go
overspend,
young. Yeah.
Well, and like Montour's
These are
30,
UFAs.
so he's 4 years younger. Matt Roy is just about 30 as well. Sean Walker is a name that's interesting to me. These aren't guys that like maybe he'll play on the top line with. Well, Matt Roy might be able to with Morgan.
It'll be
Riley.
interesting what Shane Gossesbear makes. Like, here's a guy that had like lots of draft pedigree, kind of flamed out in Philly, was like sold to Phoenix as a cap dump, and then he's kind of turned it around like with Detroit last year, and he's only 31.
Yeah,
but
I mean, if we don't end up bringing back Bertuzzi or Domi, like that's a lot of forward that we got to replace. Those are like 2 top 6 forwards, and like outside of our core 4, those are probably like the next 2 on the tier list in terms of who's going to actually be able to provide offense. Centers, we need centermen.
Well,
we got like 2 on our team.
Do you think the Leafs are anticipating that Easton Cowan's playing on the team next year?
No.
Tim?
I think he starts with the team. I don't think he makes it. I think if Easton Cowan's on your team, that's maybe a concern.
You are scraping the barrel.
As great as Easton Cowan is, it's still like the jump from junior to NHL as a small forward.
Well, you could just look at Nick Robertson. How many years is he going to be on the team? Like,
yeah, well, I just bring it up because you wonder.
Like we have a couple. Like Minton is another one, right? Like we have a couple guys that are down there that like could come up, and I don't even know where Topi Nutella is. Like, is he gonna come up and do something here, or like is he just gonna sit there in the prospect ratings at number 1 for the rest of my life?
Why you gotta roast his name? Just because he doesn't play for the Leafs, you gotta roast his name.
Until I see his name on the back of a Leaf jersey, he'll be Topi Nutella. No, we got a few guys down there, but like, you got to think like, are they gonna help us come playoffs? Like, man, I don't know. Like, they're the kind of guys who like you have some injury problems or you need some cheap guys on the cap and you bring them up for a little bit, but those aren't the kind of guys that you rely on to go deep, win a round, do whatever our goal is this upcoming year.
One pretty high level note, but the goalie we signed a few years ago, I'm not even going to try and get a fun pun on his name. Artur Akhtiamov.
You speaking Klingon? Like, what are you doing there?
What are you talking about?
So he was a goalie we drafted.
Ryan brings up free agent forwards. Tim's like, goalie we signed a few years ago.
No, he just played. He had like last year had a pretty successful season in the KHL. And he's coming to the AHL this next year.
Okay.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens to him.
Steven, I want to hear you say his name again.
I didn't even know like what vowels Tim hit. Arthur was his name, Arthur or something.
Artur Akhtiamov.
There's a goalie. Hang on. There's a goalie in the draft this year. Last name Nabokov. It's time. We got you.
Related
gotta
to
go.
Evgeny?
You gotta get him. Look it up. I actually don't know. There's no way. There's got to be like a bazillion. Russia's like gigantic. There's got to be a bunch of Nabokovs.
Mm-hmm.
But
how many of them have the goaltending gene?
I don't know. He was so cool when we were younger. Like just something about him and that teal Sharks jersey and stuff was sick. So like, if we're all in agreement that like if it's Chris Tanev and you're listening to the Leafscast, all right, and Chris Tanev gets signed, just know that everybody on this podcast is mad. We'll get on to talk about it, but like when we title the next podcast like free agent signings that we like and which ones we don't, just know that that's going to be a don't.
I mean,
I don't care what the cap hit is. We're not going to like it.
Well, hold on. It's not that you're not going to like it. Like, maybe the guy was signed as a hometown discount, and maybe he's actually fine, and he's one of those players who can figure it out. Like, of all the things to go take a risk on, Chris Tanev is the worst. It's just not the direction that I think that they should go. I don't think it's the one that will get them over the top. But
yeah, and I think in the short term, it does make our team better. Like, I don't want to watching.
Well,
Zach
every
Hyman
free agent will make the team better.
Well, you'd hope so. I mean, looking at Zach Hyman, right, and being literally the best player in the NHL in the playoffs that we let walk away because we said like, oh, in 7 years he might be too expensive. Like, you don't want that to scare you away too much to a degree, but.
He had the most goals in a single postseason run in the salary cap era. Zach Hyman did.
Unreal.
It is too much. Too
Like,
much to bear.
That man was on the ice, like, for the final moments. Like, Edmonton had to put, who they think over the boards can score a goal here. Zach Hyman, we let that man walk.
Yeah.
Hey, not everybody that we give away for free ends up biting us in the butt. Like, Ilya Mikheyev was just traded for, like, a cap dump to I think Chicago.
Vancouver's fault.
I think it was Lafferty. Him and Lafferty both went to Chicago.
Did they really?
Yeah, this was just like a few hours
Let's
ago.
get Lafferty back. I liked that guy.
They traded like Mikheyev and Lafferty and I think like a second round pick for like a fourth round pick. Yeah.
I thought Lafferty was pretty good with them. Wasn't he on their second line and like on the power play?
Mikheyev's contract is that bad.
Well, we knew that as soon as they signed it. Like that was a monster contract. And he was so bad with us. Like,
well, it's weird.
ridiculous.
He like waived his no move clause to go there. So I guess everybody's getting no move clauses. Okay, I want to just talk about something. Are the Leafs going to sign Steven Stamkos?
Bring him home.
I'm still honestly I'm surprised that Tampa. Since the day that the thought has crossed anyone's mind that he might leave Tampa, I've been pretty steady that like there's no way he's leaving Tampa. He's for sure re-signing. But I am surprised that he hasn't re-signed yet. Like, what's the guy waiting for?
Well, no, he's waiting to break my heart again, right? Because I was just thinking like this is exactly what happened the last time as well, right? It was like 20 minutes before free agency set to start, and he re-signs with Tampa.
He's just waiting for the Leafs to come in with the offer that he can wave it in front of Julian Breezebaugh's face and say like, "Here, I have all these offers. Please up yours." And Breezeball will be like, "No," and Sam says, "Okay."
I mean, we do need some center depth. Although I don't even think he plays center on Tampa anymore.
No,
I'm pretty sure he's a winger. Yeah. So no, I don't think that Stamkos will be riding in on the horse to save the day.
But wait, that's not what I asked. Like, if it happens, are you pumped?
Oh yeah, that'd be fun.
Tim, if it happens, are you pumped? Yeah, he's pumped.
I want to see like set him up on the power play, and it's like maybe that's the solution.
I don't care if it's irresponsible. Like, that's what I want. I want Steve. Like, and that's funny because I'm talking about like don't sign old man Tanev or whatever. Like Steven Stamkos is like the exact same age.
No, he's still got it though. Like man, he does.
He's
win championship material, that guy.
He does. There's guys. There's a lot of guys this year. The Leafs forward wise, wingers. Like depends on how much the Leafs prioritize the center here, but there's lots of wingers.
Even just like looking at the bottom of the lineup, I love hating on the Ryan Reeves signing. It's the easiest one. But as soon as that Brad made that deal, you start looking at a team and just like, well, who the heck is going to play on our fourth line? Like, any line with Ryan Reeves is just like a waste of a line. David Kampf became the worst contract on the Toronto Maple Leafs as soon as that signing was made, because now our fourth line is just like completely useless. And Kampf just, unfortunately, he didn't take that step, and he's not good enough to play on the third line.
Yeah.
Camp and Reeves are still on the team, so like, is the fourth line just going to be useless again, or is this the chance that Tree has to make some adjustments, maybe bring in some other players to complement that line? Like, that it needs something, because our fourth line is just completely useless. Our third line couldn't score either. We were left with two lines, and like, they couldn't score either. So,
how much money do you think Sam Reinhart's going to get this summer?
Oh,
like
he'll make
$12 million.
Yeah.
Didn't he have like almost 55 goals this season?
He'll make way too much money.
It'll be interesting where he goes.
I wonder if he stays.
Get him out of our division.
Yeah, that would be great. How
much do you guys think that Florida winning the Cup on the back of Sergei Bobrovsky, $10 million man? Hey, is that I just noticed, wasn't there a thing before that like no team has ever won with a player making over $10 million?
Eichel in.
Okay, so it broke last year.
Yeah, but
right.
no,
It'll happen
changed,
again now.
Right, they changed the stat now where it's like nobody's ever won the Cup with, four
Russian
making
goal.
over $10 million, where they're all from Arizona. Like they still find a way to just like roast us somehow.
No, but I was going to say, like, like I said earlier, it's a copycat league. Do you think that? Well, actually, maybe I'm speaking and then I realize things. I was going to say, do you think that that's going to make a shift in the league, that teams are going to be targeting big-time goaltenders? But we just saw two goaltenders in Ullmark and, what's his name from Calgary? Markstrom go, and they didn't even fetch, like, a ridiculous amount. Those were the best two goaltenders, so maybe not.
I don't really, I still remember a couple years ago when Florida was like trying to get rid of Sergei Bobrovsky
because he was bad.
Yeah, but right, and we're all talking about how it's like the worst deal, and they had Spencer Knight and that other guy who I can't even remember who he ended up getting traded to, but so I don't. It also feels weird. Feels like there's just not very many goalies that are even worth that much money.
And we're giving $4 million to a guy who hasn't even played a full season in the NHL for 3 more years as an RFA.
He's probably got 20 more games than Fraser Minton does in a Leafs, right?
That's probably true. That is probably an accurate statement.
Like, it is pretty wild. Like, it's so
he
funny.
couldn't even stay healthy in the playoffs. It was Samsonov who played in Game 7.
Okay, well, here's something we should talk about. We're getting back to, like, we're saying we think the Leafs should do this when it comes to forwards and stuff. Like, what's Brad actually going to do when it comes to forwards? Is Brad going to look at Steven Stamkos if he's sitting there and say, like, heck yeah, let's do this thing?
No, he's looking at Jake DeBrusk and saying, I'd rather have him. I couldn't even take Jake DeBrusk being on this team.
That would be tough. That would be really tough to handle. But that one's been rumored quite a bit. Yeah, I wonder. I just wonder about some of these like older scoring wingers where it kind of just feels like you're just buying goals, right? Like, can they talk Vlad Tarasenko into coming here? Can they talk Anthony Mantha into coming here? Like some of these kinds of guys that are like, they've been around. They're not these stout defensive guys, but like you know they're not going to come here and score 0 goals. Ooh, Kasperi Kapanen, free agent this year.
You wonder if they're just going to, like, almost similar to last year, get a whole bunch of 1-year contracts, have them all expire after this year, and then next year you have both Marner and Tavares' cap hits coming off the books, and you could always obviously extend both those guys, but it's just like it opens up a world of flexibility. It's like $50 million that the Leafs would have of cap space next year right now, I think it is. So like, it's just like you could totally rebuild your whole team at that point, but if you start giving out a whole bunch of 3, 4, 5-year contracts, then there's only so much you can do next year if you want to really shake stuff up.
The space disappears very quickly once you start free agent shopping. But...
Well, I mean, like, there's a whole bunch of guys we have to extend next year. Like, the $50 million has to go. I think Jake McCabe will need an extension, while obviously, like, his extension will kick in.
Oh, I thought you were going to say they're going to give him another one.
Well, I mean, we still have Wall under his current contract for this upcoming season.
Under the cloud of a 1-year contract.
All right,
Rest
Phillip.
in peace.
Seymour.
Right? He
Hoffman.
died. Rest in peace?
Yeah, he
I
did.
think so. Okay.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Too soon. It's going to be interesting.
I guess, like, just in the short term, what do you guys put the odds on the Leafs making their pick on? Is the draft Friday or Saturday? I guess
Friday.
the first round
29th.
Friday. 2 days away. You think they make the pick, or you think they trade it away?
I don't actually know.
I thought it was Friday, but I could be wrong.
It's probably Friday. That makes
I
way
would
more
have
sense.
said I would have said with a lot of certainty I think that they're going to make the pick, until I found out that it was on the table and they were ready to trade it away for a 34-year-old goaltender to tandem as a $10 million combo. And now I'm not so sure. Maybe Brad wants to move this thing and actually bring in and make a splash here, but there's only a couple days left, so I'd still probably lean towards we're going to make the pick.
What do you think, Steven?
I don't think we make the pick. I think he trades it.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think he trades it.
For what?
And Steven just takes it. He's like, hey, he trades down in the draft.
No, I don't think that we're gonna love it. I think like he trades for somebody, whether it's like just somebody who then you're getting your hands on him before everybody else can for free agency or something like that. Like I could see something like that happen. Sorry, like instead of going for a piece and like filling a role that we would have filled in free agency. So that's just what I think is going to happen. It feels like it feels like we should be doing that, right? Because like Austin Matthews signed, what was it, a 5-year deal? Like
4-year deal.
I'd so much rather have a guy with that pick that we can use right now than the draft pick. So
here's the thing, though. Like, at some point, you need to win over the next 4 years. But, like, also, if you don't have a team 4 years from now, then Matthews is definitely going to be gone. Right? Like, you need some guys who are coming up, some guys to make it so that Matthews is going to look at this team in 2028 or whenever is 2029. Is that when his deal? 2030?
Yeah,
whatever
well,
it is.
yeah,
And
I don't think
Simmons
that's
will
much
look
of
at
a
the team
look
and
at
say, like,
Crosby,
let's do
right?
it.
I'd rather have a cup in the 4 years and
Yeah,
then
you're
be the
dreaming.
San Jose Sharks after that. That's where I'm at. I don't even care. Like 4 years, we might be dead in 4 years. Like, come on, good chance of that, really.
Tim, what do you think? Are they trading it or picking?
I think they pick with it. I think they draft a player. I think that the cupboards are kind of bare of that high end talent that you kind of. Sorry, no shade to Easton Cowan. That was actually a fair bit of shade to Easton Cowan. I forgot. I think like other than him, I don't know how many other impact guys are there that are gonna like be on the NHL team. Like Minton is still, I think, at least a couple of years away if he gets there, and so I think they do make the pick. Even
What
though
other
it is gonna
draft
be a
picks
little
do we
down.
have this year? Do we have a second or we don't have a second? Do we have a
Probably
third?
None of them.
No, we have first, a fourth,
Yeah,
3 fifths, and
That's
2
pathetic.
sevenths.
We suck. We got to make the pick. We have
I
no
would like
players.
to go. Yeah, that's a good point. I would like to go on the record though and say that I like Easton Cowan, even though the rest of the Leafscast is not. I do, and I think he's going to be a good player for the Maple Leafs.
He will be, just not this year.
Yeah, that is a good point. I guess they do have to. They got to make some pick, but that's just what I think is going to happen.
Next year in the draft 2025, our first pick that we make is in round 5.
What?
Why did we trade our 2025 first? What happened?
That was the what's his name? The never mind. That was part of the Jake McCabe trade.
I like that trade still. That was a good one.
Well, I mean, NBA draft was tonight. Like somebody got traded for a 2031 first round pick.
That's stupid. Why do they even allow that to happen? That's
Somebody.
just like the most
It was like a
ridiculous
guy.
thing.
Like the Spurs drafted a kid, and then they traded him to the the Timberwolves right away for a 2031.
There's no way that the GMs of either of those teams will still be the GMs in 2031. You might as well do it.
Is that like my son? Like 2031 draft? That's so far away. Like, what's going on? I don't know.
The NBA is crazy with their draft, though.
One thing that we absolutely know, though, is that like we have zero clue what Brad's going to do here. This will be the second
a defining
draft
moment for him, right? Like this is actually a chance that he can take to shape the roster.
And Brad was the GM for like 2 days before last year's draft, right? So like we really don't.
3 months,
it wasn't even allowed to be like in the room when the draft happened last year. So. Or the first round or something like that. So, yeah, I guess we'll see.
Part of what makes it interesting is like in the past, like thinking of all those Dubas drafts, it's been like, okay, well, we really need, a right defense. That was always what we need, and like this other thing, and like it's just like obvious needs. This year we need like a top 4 defenseman, a bottom 6 defenseman, a backup goaltender. We need center depth. We need wingers to replace Domi and Bertuzzi, and we need a cup. Like, we need so many different things, and Brad won't be able to address them all. Like, there's not enough cap space or assets to fill all the holes, and it's going to be interesting to see which ones he prioritizes. It's got to be like a center and a top 4D. Like, you got to think those are number 1 and 2 of what we need here.
I'm putting it out here too. I still really think Anaheim could be a dance partner for the Leafs with a lot of these moves. Anaheim has a lot of young talent. They have John Gibson, and they have a need for veteran players, and I could still really see that happening between the Leafs and them.
I don't know. Gibson, I think, is further down the age decline than Markstrom is. We need Gibson of like 8 years ago.
I'm not saying you'll like it. I'm saying this is what I think could happen.
All right.
Oh, we've been through this. I don't like anything.
Why do I do this every year too at the draft where I'm like, trade for the first overall pick? Like I feel like it's
who's the kid at the top of the draft this year, Steve?
Celebrini.
Macklin Celebrini. That's like the sickest name to go first overall since Owen Power.
No one will ever be cooler than Owen Power. Like, Owen Power? Are you kidding me? Like, I want to go back and draft that guy.
And they're always Canadian too, so it makes me want him to go on the Leafs even more. Even though Mac is from like out west. His dad is like the lead sports scientist for the Golden State Warriors.
Really?
Yeah. Like, it's nuts. Like, he's a specimen. He's going to be great. Yeah, he'll be going to the Sharks. And it's a bunch of European guys at the top of the draft is what's estimated to happen, which will be really interesting. Like, it probably goes Canadian, about 3 Europeans, and then a couple more Canadians after that. But it happens every few years where it's just like a lot of these guys.
Well, time will tell on Friday.
Okay.
Well, if the Leafs do anything too monumental, we'll try and do an emergency pod. Otherwise, man, I still can't believe like a week from now it'll be like after the initial flurry of free agency.
Yeah.
It snuck up on me as well.
Well, we'll know what the Leafs team like largely looks like for this upcoming season. We really have no idea right now, so it'll be very interesting to see.
Don't. Okay.
I'm glad you said that we have no idea what we're talking about at the end of the podcast for the people that have just been here listening for an hour.
Well, Brad was an absolute loose cannon last year. I mean, like, we don't know, man. What happens here? Do I play the music? Do you play the music, Tim? How do we end this
he's going to re-sign Klingberg and Murray. Clarkson, he's coming back.
I have to play the music, I think.
All right, let's get this wrapped up. We'll see everyone next week. Hang on to your hats.